In the shadows of downtown Sacramento, where neon lights cast deceptive shadows and survival requires more than just physical strength, a local veterans bar has become an unexpected battleground between ruthless outlaws and someone they never should have underestimated. The Shadow Riders, a notorious biker gang known for targeting vulnerable civilians, thought they found an easy mark in a wheelchair-bound woman. They couldn't have made a bigger mistake. What unfolds over the next 48 hours isn't just a confrontation, it's a reckoning, as the gang learns too late that they've mocked one of the Marine Corps' most legendary snipers. Sarah "Shadow" Martinez sat quietly in her customized wheelchair, weathered hands resting on the armrests as she observed the growing tension in the dimly lit Veterans Corner bar. Her tactical awareness, honed through 3 combat tours, hadn't diminished since the IED that put her in this chair. The Shadow Riders had been pushing boundaries for weeks, their presence in the neighborhood growing more aggressive with each passing day. Through the reflection in her glass, she tracked their leader, Marcus "Reaper" Thompson, as he strutted through the entrance, followed by his core group of enforcers. The air shifted immediately, conversations dying as regular patrons, mostly veterans themselves, recognized the threat. But Sarah remained still, her composure masking years of specialized training and over 30 confirmed eliminations in combat scenarios. The Department of Defense still classified most of her operations, but in certain circles, the name Shadow Martinez carried weight. Reaper's boots scraped against the wooden floor as he approached the bar, his leather vest adorned with patches declaring his allegiance to the Shadow Riders. Behind him, 4 of his most trusted lieutenants spread out in practice formation. To untrained eyes, it might have looked casual, but Sarah recognized their tactical positioning. They were securing sight lines, establishing dominance over the space. "Well, what do we have here?" Reaper's voice carried artificial charm as he noticed Sarah. "Looks like someone rolled into the wrong establishment." His men chuckled on cue, but Sarah detected the calculated intimidation behind their laughter. These weren't just random thugs. Their movements suggested military background, likely dishonorable discharges based on their current affiliations. Through her peripheral vision, Sarah noted Jake Wilson, the bar's owner and fellow Marine veteran, tensing behind the counter. His hand drifted below the bar, where she knew he kept a shotgun for emergencies. She gave him an almost imperceptible shake of her head. "Not yet. This wasn't the moment. This is a place for warriors," Reaper continued, leaning against the bar, next to Sarah's wheelchair. "Not charity cases." His breath carried the scent of expensive whiskey, but his eyes remained sharp. This was performance, not intoxication. Sarah had seen this type before. Men who used intimidation as currency, who mistook cruelty for strength. The bar had grown deathly quiet. Regular patrons watched the scene unfold, many recognizing the potential for violence but unsure how to intervene without escalating the situation. Sarah maintained her silence, years of sniper training evident in her absolute stillness. She'd learned long ago that true power rarely needed to announce itself. "Nothing to say?" Reaper pressed, his smile not reaching his eyes. "That's all right. Actions speak louder than words anyway." He nodded to one of his men, who moved towards Sarah's wheelchair. "Maybe we should help you find somewhere more appropriate." Before the man could touch her chair, Sarah spoke for the first time, her voice carrying the quiet authority of someone intimately familiar with life and death situations. I wouldn't do that if I were you." The words weren't loud, but they carried weight, stopping the enforcer mid-reach. Reaper's expression shifted slightly, the first hint of uncertainty crossing his features. Something in Sarah's tone had triggered a warning signal. The instinctive recognition of a predator recognizing another predator. But his reputation was at stake now, and backing down wasn't an option. "Or what?" he challenged, straightening to his full height. "You'll roll over my toes?" His men laughed again, but there was a nervous edge to it now. They'd caught the same warning tone in Sarah's voice, and years of street experience had taught them to trust their instincts. Sarah's eyes met Reaper's directly for the first time, and something in her gaze made him take an involuntary step back. "4 months ago, 3 of your members disappeared near the old industrial district," she said calmly. "You never found them? Never even came close?" The color drained from Reaper's face. The disappearances had been a mystery that haunted the Shadow Riders, leading to whispered theories about rival gangs or law enforcement black ops. But the truth had been much simpler. They'd made the mistake of attacking an elderly veteran, and Sarah had ensured they'd never harm anyone again. "You're bluffing," Reaper said, but uncertainty had crept into his voice. Sarah's wheelchair suddenly seemed less like a sign of weakness and more like a throne. Her disability, a deceptive cover for something far more dangerous. "Third floor of the abandoned Phillips building," Sarah continued, her voice remaining eerily calm. 854 yards, 3 shots. You know what that means, don't you, Reaper? Or should I call you Private Thompson, formerly of the 75th Ranger Regiment? Reaper's hand instinctively moved toward the concealed weapon under his vest, but Sarah's next words froze him in place. "I wouldn't. Your reaction time is 0.3 seconds. Mine's 0.2. And unlike you, I never miss." The atmosphere in the bar had shifted completely. The regular patrons, many of them veterans themselves, began to recognize who they were in the presence of. Whispers of Shadow Martinez rippled through the crowd. Her reputation among military circles was legendary, the Marine Corps' most successful female sniper, with confirmed eliminations that would never appear in any official record. "You're her," one of Reaper's men whispered, taking a step back. "The Ghost of Fallujah." The nickname had emerged after she'd eliminated 5 high-value targets in a single night, each shot taken from a different position, leaving enemy forces terrified and confused. Sarah's expression remained neutral, but her eyes carried the weight of countless operations, of decisions made in fractions of seconds that determined who lived and who died. "Let me be clear," she said, her voice carrying to every corner of the now silent bar. "This establishment, this neighborhood, they're under my protection. Whatever plans you had for this area, whatever protection racket or territory expansion you were considering, it ends now." Reaper's face contorted with a mixture of fear and rage. His reputation was crumbling in front of his men, but confronting Sarah directly would be suicide. She'd revealed enough of her capabilities to make it clear that her wheelchair wasn't a limitation. It was camouflage, allowing her to operate in plain sight while others underestimated her. "This isn't over," he managed, trying to maintain some semblance of authority, but his words lacked conviction, and everyone in the bar knew it. The Shadow Riders had unknowingly challenged someone far beyond their capabilities, and only Sarah's choice to warn them rather than eliminate them had prevented a bloodbath. "Actually, it is," Sarah replied, her calm demeanor unchanged. "Because if it isn't, the next time won't be a warning. 854 yards was a choice, not a limitation. Remember that. The Shadow Riders retreated. Their attempted show of force transformed into a humiliating withdrawal. As they passed through the door, Sarah's voice carried one final message. And Reaper, those 3 men who disappeared, consider that a down payment. Every veteran they would have harmed, every innocent they would have terrorized, that debt's been paid. Don't make me start a new tab. The bar remained silent for several moments after their departure, the regular patrons processing what they'd witnessed. Jake Wilson moved from behind the bar, approaching Sarah with a mixture of respect and awe. "You've been watching them all. Long, haven't you?" he asked quietly. Sarah nodded slightly, her eyes still focused on the door. "Someone has to. Not all wars are fought in foreign lands. Sometimes the most important battles are right here at home, protecting those who can't protect themselves." As conversations slowly resumed in the bar, Sarah remained vigilant, her trained senses monitoring for any potential retaliation. But she knew the Shadow Riders wouldn't return, not tonight, and not to this neighborhood. They'd learned what others had learned before them, that appearances could be deceiving, that true strength wasn't always visible, and that some legends operated not in the pages of history books, but in the shadows of ordinary places, defending those who needed protection most. The night was still young, and Sarah knew this confrontation was just the beginning. The Shadow Riders were part of something larger, something that would require all of her skills and experience to confront. But for now, she had established the first boundary, drawn the first line in the sand. The real war was about to begin, and she was ready. After all, a sniper's greatest weapon isn't their rifle. It's their patience, their ability to wait for the perfect moment to act. And Sarah Martinez had all the patience in the world. Reaper's rage echoed through the Shadow Rider's clubhouse as he hurled a glass against the wall, sending whiskey and shards spraying across worn leather furniture. His inner circle watched, tensely as their leader processed the humiliation from Veterans Corner Bar. The spacious warehouse-turned headquarters, usually a symbol of their growing power, now felt confining as Reaper's anger filled every corner. "A fucking cripple," he snarled, pacing the length of their command room. "Some wheelchair-bound has been just threatened us in our own territory." His fists clenched rhythmically, knuckles whitening with each pulse of fury. The room's dim lighting cast harsh shadows across his face, highlighting the dangerous glint in his eyes. Marcus Blade Peterson, Reaper's second-in-command, stepped forward cautiously. "Boss, we need to think this through. If she really is who she claims to be." He trailed off as Reaper's glare cut through him. "The ghost of Fallujah," Reaper spat the nickname like poison. "You know what that means, don't you?" He turned to face his assembled lieutenants. "It means we've got a Tier 1 operator in our territory. Someone who's been eliminating targets since before most of you could handle a weapon." The clubhouse's security monitors cast a blue glow across the room, displaying feeds from cameras scattered throughout their territory. On one screen, the Veterans Corner Bar stood quiet, its exterior betraying nothing of the confrontation that had occurred inside. She knew about Phillips' building, another lieutenant known as Snake muttered. "Nobody was supposed to know about that. We swept. It cleaned, no evidence, no witnesses." The memory of their missing members hung heavy in the air, a reminder that their dominance wasn't as absolute as they'd believed. Reaper's expression shifted from rage to calculated determination. Pull up everything we have on Sarah Martinez, he ordered, moving to a computer terminal. Military records, news articles, anything. I want to know exactly who we're dealing with. As his men worked, information began appearing on the main display screen. Service records, heavily redacted mission reports, and scattered news articles painted a picture that made even the hardened criminals uncomfortable. 3 tours in combat zones, specialized sniper training, and a list of confirmed eliminations. That seemed impossibly high. Jesus, Blade whispered, scanning the data. Says here she set the record for longest confirmed elimination in her unit. Details are classified, but rumors put it over a mile. He scrolled through more documents. After the IED incident, she disappeared from official records. No public appearances, no interviews, nothing. Reaper studied the information intently, his military background helping him read between the lines of heavily censored reports. She's not just some retired veteran, he concluded. She's still active, just operating differently. The wheelchair, the quiet presence at the bar, it's all cover. The clubhouse's air conditioning hummed as the men processed this revelation. Their territory expansion plans had just collided with someone far more dangerous than they'd anticipated. But retreat wasn't in their nature, and their reputation wouldn't survive backing down. We've got numbers, Snake suggested, trying to sound confident. Whatever her skills, she's still limited by that chair. One person can't watch everything. Even as he spoke, doubt crept into his voice. Reaper's laugh carried no humor. You think she works alone? Those disappearances were too clean, too professional. She's got a network, probably other veterans. They're using the bar as a front, monitoring our movements. Security footage from recent weeks played across the screens, showing Shadow Riders members patrolling their territory. Now, with new awareness, they noticed background details. Regular faces appearing in different locations, seemingly random. People watching their movements with too much interest. Here, Blade pointed to a series of timestamps. Same faces keep showing up near our supply routes, our meeting points. We thought we were watching them, but they've been watching us all along. The revelation sent a chill through the room. Reaper's tactical mind, honed through military service before his dishonorable discharge, began forming plans. We can't hit her directly, he concluded. Not yet. She'll be expecting that. We need to draw her out, force her to operate outside her comfort zone. The clubhouse's heavy doors opened as more Shadow Riders members arrived, responding to emergency summons. Reaper surveyed his assembled force, mentally calculating resources and capabilities. They had numbers, weapons, and territory, but they were facing someone who had turned entire cities into hunting grounds. Start with surveillance, he ordered. I want eyes on that bar, 24/7. Track everyone who goes in and out. Find her patterns, her weaknesses. He turned to Snake. Contact our friends in the police department. I want to know if she's been talking to them. As his men dispersed to their tasks, Reaper remained at the computer terminal, studying Sarah's service photo. The woman in the image stood proud in marine dress uniform, medals gleaming on her chest. Her eyes carried the same intensity he'd seen at the bar, but there was something else there too, a predator's focus that no amount of military discipline could fully conceal. You might be a legend, he muttered to the image, but legends can. You bleed. And I've got something better than a sniper rifle. I've got an army. His fingers traced the screen, outlining potential targets in their territory. Let's see how good you are when everything's burning. In a private office above the main floor, Reaper accessed a secure phone line. The number he dialed wasn't in any contact list, and the conversation that followed was brief and cryptic. But when he emerged, his confidence had solidified into something more dangerous. "New orders," he announced to his lieutenants. "We're accelerating our timeline. Whatever we had planned for this territory, it happens now, all of it." He surveyed their surprised expressions. "Ms. Martinez wants to protect this neighborhood? Fine. Let's give her more targets than she can handle." The bar clubhouse erupted into activity as orders were relayed and plans modified. Weapons were distributed, routes planned, and targets identified. The Shadow Riders had built their reputation on overwhelming force, and now they would bring everything they had to bear. "One more thing," Reaper added, his voice carrying deadly certainty. "Find out who she cares about. Everyone has weakness, even legends." He turned to the security feeds, watching the quiet streets of their territory. "She thinks she's hunting us? We'll show her what it means to be hunted." As night settled over the city, the Shadow Riders mobilized with military precision. Their vehicles moved through back streets, carrying weapons and men to strategic positions. To casual observers, it might have looked like normal gang activity. But this was different. This was war. In the command room, Reaper made final adjustments to their plans. The humiliation at the bar had awakened something in him, something that went beyond normal gang violence. This was personal now, a chance to prove that his fall from military grace hadn't diminished his capabilities. "Remember," he addressed his assembled force, "she's expecting a direct confrontation. That's her strength, picking off targets from distance, controlling the battlefield. So we change the rules, we create chaos, force her to fight our way." His eyes gleamed with anticipation. "By tomorrow night, this neighborhood won't know what hit it." The clubhouse slowly emptied as teams moved out to their assigned positions. But in his office, Reaper made one final call. The voice that answered was cold, professional, suggesting connections far beyond normal gang affiliations. "The situation has escalated," Reaper reported. "We're implementing contingency plans." He listened briefly, then added, "Yes, I understand the parameters. No witnesses, no evidence. By the time we're done, Sarah Martinez will be just another tragic veteran statistic." As he ended the call, Reaper allowed himself a satisfied smile. The ghost of Fallujah might be legendary, but legends belonged in history books. And he intended to write the final chapter of this one personally. Sarah Martinez's apartment overlooked the city from the 12th floor, her tactical position carefully chosen long before the Shadow Riders became a threat. Through high-powered optics, she observed their increased activity across the neighborhood, noting patrol patterns and communication signals. The wheelchair beside her bed remained empty. In private, she could move freely. The disability, a carefully crafted cover for her ongoing operations. Captain Michael "Ghost" Rodriguez sat at her monitoring station, multiple screens displaying surveillance feeds from across their area of operations. "They're mobilizing," he reported, tracking vehicle movements, full tactical deployment, military-style coordination. These aren't just street thugs playing. Soldier. Sarah adjusted her scope, focusing on a Shadow Riders team, establishing a position near Veterans Corner Bar. "No, they're not," she agreed, her voice carrying the quiet certainty of experience. "Their leader's ranger's background is showing. They're setting up interlocking fields of fire, creating controlled zones." The apartment's spare furnishings concealed a sophisticated command center, the result of years preparing for precisely this type of situation. Computer systems tracked communications, while thermal imaging revealed hidden observation posts throughout the neighborhood. Our network is reporting increased activity at their satellite locations, Michael noted, scrolling through encrypted messages. They're pulling in resources from other territories. Whatever they're planning, it's big. As Sarah's former spotter and longtime friend, he could read the subtle tension in her movements. Through another window, Sarah observed Jake Wilson coordinating with other veterans at his bar, their movements suggesting military training beneath civilian clothes. "How many of our people are in position?" she asked, already calculating response scenarios. 23 operators, all former special forces or intelligence, Michael replied. Plus another dozen support personnel monitoring communications and running interference with local law enforcement. He paused, studying a new data feed. They're trying to access your military records, pulling everything they can find about the ghost of Fallujah. Sarah allowed herself a small smile, remembering operations that would never appear in any official documentation. Let them look. Everything they'll find is either redacted or misdirection. She moved away from the window, approaching a secure gun safe concealed behind a false wall panel. The safe contained an array of specialized equipment, each piece selected and modified for optimal urban warfare. "They'll expect us to be defensive," she noted, checking the action on a custom suppressed rifle, "to fortify positions and wait for their attack." Michael recognized the tone in her voice. "We're not going to do that, are we?" Despite years working together, Sarah's tactical innovations still surprised him. Her mind processed battlefield dynamics in ways that defied conventional strategy. "The wheelchair isn't just cover," Sarah explained, assembling her weapon with practiced efficiency. "It's misdirection. They think it limits our operational range, forces us to fight from fixed positions." Her hands moved with surgical precision, each component clicking into place. "That assumption will cost them everything." The monitoring station pinged with new alerts as more Shadow Riders teams deployed across the neighborhood. Michael tracked their movements, noting patterns and vulnerabilities. They're establishing a perimeter, trying to control all access points. Standard siege tactics. Sarah moved to a detailed map of the area, marking enemy positions with practiced eye. Reapers trying to overwhelm us with numbers, force us to defend too many targets at once. Her finger traced potential engagement zones. But he's forgetting something crucial about snipers. "We don't need to be everywhere," Michael finished, understanding dawning in his eyes. "We just need to be in the right place at the right time." He'd seen this strategy before, in operations that remained classified at the highest levels. Sarah activated a secure communication channel connecting with their network of veterans scattered throughout the neighborhood. "All units maintain observation only," she ordered. "No engagement without direct authorization. Let them think they're in control." The apartment's security systems logged multiple attempts at electronic surveillance, each one feeding false data to Shadow Riders' intelligence gathering. Every camera they thought was providing reconnaissance was actually revealing their own. "In positions. They're moving something heavy into position," Michael reported, studying thermal signatures. "Military-grade equipment, probably from Reaper's old connections." The implications were clear. This wasn't just gang violence escalating, but something more organized. Sarah checked her weapon one final time, muscle memory from countless operations guiding each movement. "They think they're hunting us," she noted, her voice carrying deadly certainty. "Time to show them what real hunting looks like." The monitoring station tracked Shadow Riders' communications, their encrypted channels revealing growing confidence as positions were established. They believed they were setting a trap, preparing to overwhelm their target with superior numbers and firepower. "Sir," one of their surveillance teams reported through secure channels, "they're setting up some kind of command center in an abandoned warehouse. Multiple vehicles, heavy security." The operator's voice carried professional assessment. "Looks like they're coordinating everything from there." Sarah studied the location through satellite imagery, her mind calculating angles and approaches. "Perfect," she said quietly. "They're putting all their leadership in one place, thinking strength in numbers equals security." Her finger marked potential firing positions on the map. Michael recognized the tactical opportunity immediately. "Single point of failure," he noted. "Take out their command and control, their whole operation falls apart." He'd seen Sarah exploit similar vulnerabilities in combat zones across 3 continents. "Have our people pull back from the warehouse district," Sarah ordered through their command channel. "Make it look like we're concentrating our defense around the residential areas." Her strategy was taking shape, each piece moving into position. The apartment systems continued monitoring enemy movements while Sarah prepared for deployment. Her wheelchair would remain behind. Tonight's operation required full mobility and the element of surprise. "They've got at least 40 fighters in the immediate area," Michael reported, counting heat signatures. "Another 60 on standby in neighboring territories, plus whatever backup Reapers arranged through his outside connections." Sarah checked her ammunition, each round hand-loaded to her exact specifications. "Numbers don't matter," she replied calmly. "Not when you control the engagement." Her eyes carried the focus that had made her legendary in combat zones worldwide. The monitoring station tracked multiple Shadow Riders teams, establishing observation posts, their positions revealing military training beneath gang affiliations. They were professional, coordinated, and completely unaware of the trap they were walking into. "All units acknowledge tactical shift," Michael broadcast through their secure network. "Maintain defensive posture. Make it visible. Let them think. They've got us contained." The responses came quickly, each operator understanding their role in the developing strategy. Sarah moved to the apartment's hidden armory, selecting additional equipment with practiced efficiency. Each piece was chosen not just for its tactical advantage, but for its psychological impact. The Shadow Riders needed to learn why certain legends were better left unchallenged. "They're starting to probe our defensive positions," Michael noted, watching engagement patterns develop, testing response times, looking for weaknesses. His fingers flew across keyboards, coordinating their network's reactions, making it look good, just like you said. Outside, darkness was falling over the city, providing perfect conditions for what was to come. Sarah had always preferred night operations. Darkness was a sniper's natural element, transforming urban terrain into a hunting ground. "Remember," she instructed their operators, "no matter what happens, maintain defensive positions only. Let them think they're in control until the exact moment they learn otherwise." Her voice carried the authority of countless successful missions. The apartment systems continued gathering intelligence as Sarah made final preparations. Each piece of equipment was checked and secured, every movement practiced until it was instinct. In combat zones across the world, she'd learned that victory often came down to perfect execution of basic skills. "Sir," another operator reported, "they're moving some kind of specialized equipment into the warehouse. Military grade, definitely not standard gang hardware." The implications were clear. Reaper had connections far beyond normal criminal networks. Sarah absorbed this information while completing her preparations. "Good," she replied simply. "The more resources they commit, the more they lose when it all falls apart." Her strategy was designed not just to defeat the Shadow Riders, but to eliminate their entire support structure. The monitoring station tracked increasing enemy activity as night settled over the city. Shadow Riders' teams moved with growing confidence, believing they had contained their target within a shrinking perimeter. "They think they're writing the final chapter of your legend," Michael observed, watching their movements. "They have no idea they're about to become part of it instead." He'd seen that same confidence in other opponents over the years, right before Sarah showed them the error of their assumptions. Sarah checked her tactical timeline one final time, each phase of the operation precisely planned. "Legends are built on perception," she noted, moving toward the apartment's hidden exit route. "Tonight, we're going to give them something to remember." The ghost of Fallujah was about to remind everyone why some legends were better left undisturbed. The hunt was about to begin, and Sarah Martinez was in her element. The Shadow Riders thought they were prepared for anything, but they were about to learn the difference between playing at war and facing a true predator. The warehouse district's shadows concealed Sarah's approach as she moved with lethal precision through maintenance. Tunnels mapped months before, her movements carried the fluid efficiency of countless combat operations, each step placing her closer to her target. Above, Shadow Riders' patrols moved in predictable patterns, their confidence making them blind to the threat beneath there. "Efreet, Command Center is fully operational," Michael reported through her encrypted earpiece, counting 15 heat signatures inside, including Reaper and his primary lieutenants. They're coordinating strike teams through hardened communications. His voice carried professional assessment as he monitored their surveillance feeds. Sarah paused at a junction, checking her tactical display. The underground network of maintenance tunnels had been her first priority when establishing operations in this territory. While the Shadow Riders controlled the streets above, they'd never considered what moved beneath them. Status on perimeter. "Teams," she whispered, her voice barely audible even through advanced communications equipment. Years of sniper operations had taught her that sound discipline was crucial, even in supposedly secure positions. Michael's fingers moved across multiple keyboards, tracking enemy movements through their surveillance network. 4 two-man teams, maintaining external security, standard patrol routes, 10-minute intervals. They've got motion sensors covering main approaches, but... He allowed himself a small smile. They're all focused on street level. The tunnel system carried the distant hum of industrial equipment, masking any sound of movement. Sarah checked her weapon one final time, confirming each component was secure. The custom-modified rifle had been specifically designed for close quarters, urban warfare, combining accuracy with maneuverability. "Our people are maintaining defensive positions," Michael continued, monitoring their network of veterans. "Shadow Riders are completely focused on the residential zone. They think they've got us contained." The sound of multiple surveillance feeds filled the command center as he coordinated their operation. Sarah reached her predetermined position, directly beneath the warehouse's main support structure. Thermal imaging showed enemy positions above, their movements revealing growing confidence in their tactical situation. Time to change their perspective, she noted quietly. The first phase began with precisely calculated demolition charges, each one placed to create specific structural effects without causing catastrophic collapse. Sarah had spent weeks planning this operation, ensuring maximum psychological impact with minimal collateral damage. Charges set, she confirmed, moving to her next position. Initiate disruption sequence on my mark. The warehouse above had been chosen specifically for this operation, its layout providing perfect conditions for what was to come. Michael's hands moved across specialized equipment, preparing to broadcast carefully crafted interference across Shadow Rider's communications. Ready on your signal. Their equipment's good, but they're not prepared for military-grade electronic warfare. Sarah reached her final position, years of combat experience guiding every movement. Through specialized optics, she could observe the warehouse's interior, watching Shadow Rider's leadership coordinate their forces with false confidence. Execute, she commanded. The effect was immediate and devastating. Precisely placed charges detonated simultaneously, creating controlled structural damage that filled the warehouse with smoke and confusion without compromising its integrity. Before the Shadow Riders could react, their communications erupted with sophisticated interference, carefully designed to create maximum chaos while maintaining specific channels clear for Sarah's operation. What the hell was that? Reaper's voice cut through the confusion, his military training evident in his immediate response. Get me status reports now. All teams check in. But his commands were met with garbled static, their communication network compromised at the worst possible moment. Sarah moved with practiced efficiency, using the chaos as cover. While Shadow Rider's forces responded to the apparent attack on their position, she was already implementing the next phase of her operation. External teams are moving to investigate, Michael reported, tracking heat signatures. Internal security is spreading thin, trying to cover too many potential threats at once. His voice carried professional satisfaction as their strategy unfolded exactly as planned. The warehouse's emergency lighting cast strange shadows through the smoke, creating perfect conditions for what was to come. Sarah accessed predetermined positions, each one chosen to maximize psychological impact on her targets. Someone's in here, one of Reaper's lieutenants shouted, firing blindly at movement in the smoke. But Sarah was already gone, leaving only confusion and growing fear in her wake. The Shadow Riders were learning what it meant to face an opponent who turned their own territory against them. Multiple targets detected, different voices called out, each one adding to the chaos. They're everywhere. The smoke concealed the truth that they faced a single operator who had mastered the art of creating phantom threats through precise movement and timing. Reaper struggled to maintain control, his military experience telling him they were under professional attack. Form up, he commanded, back to back, secure positions. This is a tactical insertion. But his orders came too late, his forces already scattered by carefully induced panic. Sarah's voice, electronically modified to seem like it came from multiple directions, filled the warehouse. You should have stayed away from my neighborhood, she projected, the words echoing through smoke-filled spaces. Now you get to experience what real hunting feels like. The psychological effect was immediate and devastating. Shadow Rider's forces, already destabilized by the initial attack, began firing at shadows. their training giving way to primal fear as an unseen predator stalked them. "Boss, we need to pull back." Blade's voice carried barely controlled panic. "This isn't normal gang warfare. We're dealing with something else." His military instincts recognized the precision of the attack, the professional coordination behind every aspect. Sarah moved between predetermined positions, each movement calculated to create maximum uncertainty among her targets. The warehouse had become her hunting ground, its shadows and spaces transformed into weapons against those who thought they controlled it. "Sir," Michael's voice came through her earpiece, "external teams are trying to re-establish communication. Want me to let some signals through?" The question carried tactical implications. Allowing enemies to coordinate could sometimes work to an operator's advantage. "Negative," Sarah replied softly, moving to her next position. "Maintain full spectrum denial. Let them feel what it's like to be truly alone." Her strategy wasn't just about physical dominance, it was about breaking their confidence, their sense of control. Through her specialized optics, she watched Reaper's composure cracking as his command center descended into chaos. The man who had mocked her disability was learning a harsh lesson about underestimating opponents. "This is impossible," Reaper muttered, his Rangers training warring with growing fear. "One person can't do this. It has to be a full tactical team." But deep down, he was beginning to understand exactly who he was facing and why certain legends were better left unchallenged. Sarah's next movement brought her within arm's reach of an isolated guard, his attention focused outward against expected threats. The takedown was silent, precise. Another shadow added to the growing confusion as bodies disappeared into smoke-filled spaces. "They're picking us off!" someone shouted, adding to the psychological pressure. "We need to get out of here!" But retreat was no longer an option. Sarah had transformed the warehouse into a trap, each exit covered by precisely calculated fields of fire. Michael's voice carried professional appreciation as he monitored the operation through multiple feeds. "They're breaking formation, sir. Combat effectiveness down to 30% and dropping. These aren't soldiers anymore. They're scared kids with guns." Sarah allowed herself a moment of grim satisfaction as she moved to her next position. The Shadow Riders had brought this on themselves, choosing to threaten her people, her territory. Now they were learning why certain reputations carried weight in professional circles. "Please," one of Reaper's men whimpered, firing blindly at movement in the smoke. "We'll leave, we'll stay away from the neighborhood, just let us go." But his pleas were met only with silence, broken occasionally by the sound of another fighter disappearing into shadows. Reaper made a final attempt to rally his forces, military training asserting itself through fear. "Form on me!" he commanded. "Tight circle, overlapping fields of fire. We can fight our way out of this." But his words carried desperation rather than authority now. Sarah's voice echoed through the warehouse again, seeming to come from everywhere at once. "Fighting implies you have a chance," she projected. "This isn't a fight, Reaper. This is punishment. This is consequence. This is what happens when you threaten my people." The psychological impact was devastating. Hardened criminals, many with military backgrounds, reduced to jumping at shadows as an unseen predator systematically dismantled their confidence and control. "Sir," Michael reported, "external teams are attempting to breach the perimeter. Want me to let them try?" The question carried tactical implications. Sometimes allowing reinforcements could create additional opportunities. Sarah moved to her final position, preparing for the operation's culmination. "Negative," she replied softly. "Maintain containment. It's time to end this." The warehouse had served its purpose, transforming from command center to hunting ground to trap. The ghost of Fallujah was about to remind everyone why some legends persisted, why certain reputations carried weight long after the operations that created them faded into classified history. The Shadow Riders had wanted to write her final chapter. Instead, they were about to become part of her ongoing legend. The warehouse's emergency lighting flickered as Sarah initiated the final phase of her operation. Through the smoke and confusion, she tracked Reaper's remaining forces, now clustered together in what they thought was a defensible position. Their confidence had evaporated, replaced by the primal fear of prey, realizing too late they'd become targets. 5 minutes until local law enforcement responds to reported gunfire, Michael updated through her earpiece, monitoring police channels. Shadow Rider's external teams are still trying to breach the perimeter. Our people have them contained, but they're getting desperate. Sarah moved like a ghost through carefully calculated shadows, each step bringing her closer to her primary target. Reaper's military training was evident in his attempted defensive formation, but fear had compromised his tactical judgment. He'd positioned his men exactly where she wanted them. "Please," one of his lieutenants whispered, weapons shaking as he scanned smoke-filled spaces. "We can make a deal. Whatever you want. Money, territory, connections. Just let us walk away." The words echoed through the warehouse, met only with calculating silence. Blade, still trying to maintain some semblance of tactical awareness, noticed movement in his peripheral vision. "Contact left," he shouted, firing a burst that hit nothing but shadows. Sarah was already gone, leaving only growing panic in her wake. "Hold your fire!" Reaper commanded, but his authority had crumbled. His men were shooting at phantoms, their training forgotten as primal instincts took over. Each burst of gunfire revealed their positions more clearly, making them perfect targets for what was to come. Through specialized optics, Sarah observed their deteriorating tactical situation. The Shadow Riders had brought significant firepower to this operation, but all their weapons were useless against an opponent they couldn't engage directly. "Sir," Michael reported, intercepting multiple distress calls from their external teams. "They're starting to realize something's wrong. Some are attempting to flee the area entirely." His voice carried professional satisfaction as their strategy achieved its desired effect. Sarah's next movement brought her within striking distance of Reaper's defensive circle. The gang leader's Rangers training was still evident in his bearing, but his eyes carried the growing realization that he'd drastically underestimated his opponent. "Ghost of Fallujah," Reaper called out, trying to project confidence he no longer felt. "You've made your point. Let's handle this professionally." "Soldier to soldier." His words carried desperate hope, an attempt to appeal to shared military background. Sarah's voice, still electronically modified to seem omnipresent, filled the smoke-laden air. "Professionally?" The word carried deadly emphasis. Like mocking a disabled veteran, like threatening civilians in my territory. Each question echoed from different directions, increasing psychological pressure. "That was business," Reaper argued, weapon tracking movement that always seemed just out of sight. "Nothing personal. We didn't know who you were." His justification sounded hollow even to his own ears, fear stripping away his usual bravado. The day warehouse's shadows seemed to shift as Sarah implemented her final approach. Years of combat experience had taught her that physical elimination wasn't always the most effective strategy. Sometimes, leaving enemies alive but thoroughly broken served a greater purpose. 3 minutes to police response, Michael updated. Shadow Riders' communication channels are chaos. Words spreading about what's happening here. Their entire organization is starting to fracture. His monitoring systems tracked growing panic through enemy frequencies. Sarah's next movement eliminated another of Reaper's lieutenants from the equation. A precise strike, rendering him unconscious before he could alert others. The defensive circle tightened as fighters realized another of their number had vanished into the smoke. "What do you want?" Reaper demanded, his voice cracking slightly. "Name your terms, whatever it takes to end this." His remaining men pressed closer together, creating a tighter formation that only made them more vulnerable to Sarah's strategy. Through her tactical display, Sarah observed multiple targeting options. Each member of Reaper's group was within easy reach, their attempts at defensive positioning actually making her job easier. But simple elimination wasn't her goal. This operation needed to send a message. "Sir," Michael's voice carried urgency. "Police entering the outer perimeter. 2 minutes until they reach the warehouse. Shadow Riders' external teams are in full retreat. Some are attempting to access emergency extraction protocols." Sarah moved to her final position, preparing to end the confrontation. The warehouse's emergency lighting caught something metallic in the smoke, just enough to draw attention without revealing her location. It was time to demonstrate why certain legends carried weight in professional circles. "Your terms," she projected, voice seeming to come from everywhere at once, "are simple. The neighborhood is off limits, permanently. Any action against civilians, any threat to veterans in my territory, results in consequences you won't survive." Each word carried absolute certainty. Reaper's remaining lieutenants were barely maintaining combat positions, their weapons shaking as unseen movement flickered at the edge of their vision. The smoke had thinned slightly, but this only made the shadows more menacing as imagination filled darkened spaces with threats. "And if we refuse?" Blade asked, trying to maintain some semblance of defiance. But his question lacked conviction, fear evident in every syllable. The Shadow Rider's reputation for ruthless efficiency had been thoroughly shattered in less than an hour. Sarah's response came not in words, but in action. In less than 10 seconds, she eliminated Reaper's remaining protection detail with precise, non-lethal strikes. Each target dropped silently into the smoke, leaving their leader suddenly alone and exposed. 60 seconds to police contact, Michael reported calmly. "Our people are withdrawing to secondary positions. Shadow Riders' organization showing signs of complete command breakdown. Field units are refusing orders, abandoning positions." Reaper stood alone now, weapon tracking movement that always seemed just ahead or behind his aim point. His Rangers. Training was still evident in his stance, but fear had compromised his abilities. He'd become prey rather than predator, and his instincts knew it. "The neighborhood," Sarah's voice carried quiet authority as she emerged from the smoke directly. "Behind him is under my protection. Your organization will maintain strict boundaries. Any violation results in elimination. These terms are non-negotiable." Reaper spun to face her, but his weapon was already gone, removed with practiced efficiency before he registered the threat. Close up, he finally saw what his men had felt throughout the encounter. The focused lethality of someone who had mastered the art of combat at its highest levels. 30 seconds, Michael updated. Police approaching the warehouse from multiple angles. Shadow Rider's external communications show complete organizational collapse. Their entire command structure is compromised. Sarah moved with precise economy, disabling Reaper with a series of strikes that left him conscious but thoroughly subdued. The gang leader's eyes showed final understanding, recognition that all his military training, all his criminal resources, meant nothing against a true predator. "Remember this moment," she instructed quietly, securing him for police discovery. "Remember what happened when you chose the wrong target. Remember why some legends are better left unchallenged." Each word carried the weight of absolute certainty. Through her tactical display, Sarah confirmed all objectives achieved. The Shadow Riders' leadership had been systematically broken, their organization thrown into chaos. But more importantly, a message had been sent that would resonate through criminal circles. "Police entering the building," Michael reported. "Our withdrawal routes are clear. Shadow Riders' external teams have completely dispersed. Local news is already picking up reports of gang activity gone wrong." His voice carried professional satisfaction as their strategy achieved full effect. Sarah moved toward her predetermined exit route, leaving Reaper and his unconscious lieutenants for law enforcement to discover. The warehouse had served its purpose, transformed from enemy command center to hunting ground to object lesson. "Neighborhood status," she requested, accessing their surveillance network as she withdrew. The operation's success would be measured, not just in enemy casualties, but in the long-term security of her territory. Michael's response carried quiet pride. All civilian areas secure. Shadow Rider's influence completely neutralized. Words already spreading through criminal networks about what happened here. Your reputation is expanding in interesting ways. The ghost of Fallujah had reminded everyone why certain boundaries shouldn't be crossed, why some targets were better left unchallenged. But more importantly, she'd established a new legend, one that would protect her people more effectively than any number of conventional defenses. Sarah sat in her customized wheelchair at Veterans Corner Bar 2 days later, observing the subtle changes in neighborhood dynamics through practiced eyes. The Shadow Riders' presence had vanished completely, their territory abandoned as word spread about what happened in the warehouse. Local residents moved with renewed confidence, no longer fearing gang intimidation. "You should see the police reports," Jake Wilson commented quietly, cleaning glasses behind the bar. "They're still trying to figure out how one disabled veteran managed to systematically dismantle an entire criminal organization." His voice carried admiration mixed with professional understanding. Michael entered the bar, carrying a secured tablet displaying multiple news feeds. "Shadow Rider's collapse is causing interesting ripples," he reported, taking a seat beside Sarah. "Their allied organizations are scrambling to distance themselves. Nobody wants to risk similar attention." Through the bar's windows, Sarah noted increased civilian activity on previously dangerous streets. Families walked freely, local businesses operated without fear of extortion, and the neighborhood's character was visibly transforming. "Our network is reporting complete withdrawal of criminal elements from the target zone," Michael continued, scrolling through encrypted communications. "They're abandoning safe houses, supply routes, everything. Your reputation is proving to be quite the deterrent." Sarah took a measured sip of water, maintaining her cover as she processed tactical implications. "How's our friend Reaper adjusting to his new circumstances?" she asked. though she already knew the answer through various channels. Jake's expression carried grim satisfaction, still in custody along with his primary lieutenants. But here's the interesting part. None of them will talk about what happened. They're too scared of appearing weak in front of their peers. He paused, wiping down the bar. Or maybe they're just too scared of you. The bar's regular patrons, mostly veterans themselves, maintained casual observation of entry points and potential threats. Habits formed through years of service that now served a new purpose. They'd become an informal security network, protecting their neighborhood through quiet vigilance. Local law enforcement is reporting interesting developments, Michael noted, accessing secure channels. Criminal organizations are establishing explicit boundaries around our territory. They're marking it as completely off-limits to any operation. His voice carried professional appreciation for the psychological impact. Sarah's wheelchair, once seen as a symbol of vulnerability, had become something else entirely. Local residents now recognized it as a sign of protection, a reminder that their neighborhood had powerful guardians watching over it. "We're getting inquiries," Jake mentioned casually, though his eyes carried serious implications. Other neighborhoods, other veterans' communities, word spreading about what happened here. People want to know if similar protection is available. Through practiced observation, Sarah noted 3 new patrons entering the bar, veterans based on their bearing, likely recently discharged based on their age. They carried themselves with the subtle alertness of combat experience, automatically scanning for exits and threats. The warehouse incident created an interesting template, Michael observed, monitoring various feeds. Systematic dismantling of criminal infrastructure without excessive violence or collateral damage. It's attracting attention from some interesting quarters. Sarah's tactical awareness registered multiple surveillance attempts focused on the Pardes bar, a mix of law enforcement, criminal organizations, and other interested parties trying to understand what had happened. All of them were being fed carefully crafted disinformation through their network. Reaper's external connections are proving enlightening, Michael continued, accessing encrypted data. His organization had ties to larger operations, international, players using local gangs for cover. They're all backing off now, unwilling to risk exposure. The bar's atmosphere carried a new energy, not just the relief of freedom from gang pressure, but the confidence of a community that had found its strength. Veterans from different eras mixed with civilian residents, creating natural support networks. Police are still trying to explain the warehouse scene, Jake noted with subtle amusement. Highly trained criminals taken down without fatalities. Sophisticated electronic warfare, professional-grade tactical execution. They're looking everywhere, except at the disabled veteran drinking water at my bar. Sarah's position allowed perfect observation of the street outside, where local children played freely for the first time in months. The transformation wasn't just about removing criminal elements. It was about restoring normal life to a threatened community. Our surveillance network is picking up interesting chatter, Michael reported, monitoring multiple channels. Criminal organizations are developing new protocols, explicit instructions to avoid any operation that might attract attention from the ghost in the wheelchair. Your reputation is evolving in fascinating ways. Through the bar's windows, Sarah noticed increased civilian foot traffic, people walking without fear, businesses operating normally, community life flourishing in the absence of gang intimidation. The neighborhood's character was visibly transforming. The Military's investigating, Jake mentioned quietly, his voice carrying no concern. Trying to figure out who coordinated such a sophisticated operation. But all they'll find are carefully maintained covers and perfectly ordinary veterans supporting their community. Sarah's wheelchair had become more than just cover. It was now a symbol that carried weight in both legitimate and criminal circles. The disabled veteran who drank water at Veterans Corner Bar had become an urban legend, a warning to those who would prey on the vulnerable. We're getting requests for consultation, Michael noted, checking secured communications. Other veterans' communities wanting to establish similar security networks. The warehouse operation created an effective model for community defense. The bar's regular patrons maintained casual but effective surveillance, their military training, expressed through subtle observation and coordinated awareness. They'd become part of something larger, a network of protectors operating in plain sight. Shadow Rider's collapse is having interesting secondary effects, Jake observed, restocking supplies. Other criminal organizations are re-evaluating their territories, pulling back from veteran-heavy neighborhoods. Nobody wants to risk similar attention. Sarah's tactical awareness noted multiple observation attempts around the bar, various agencies and organizations trying to understand what had happened. Each one was being fed carefully crafted disinformation, maintaining the mystery that made their operation effective. Local authorities are reporting unprecedented cooperation from criminal elements, Michael commented, monitoring police channels. They're voluntarily withdrawing from certain areas, establishing clear boundaries around veteran communities. Your reputation is proving quite persuasive. The bar had become more than just a gathering place. It was now a symbol of community, resilience, a reminder that some neighborhoods had powerful guardians watching over them, veterans from different eras mixed with civilian residents, creating natural support networks. Reaper's interrogations are proving interesting, Jake noted quietly. He keeps talking about shadows and smoke, about being hunted by something he couldn't fight. The psychological impact was more effective than any physical damage. Through practiced observation, Sarah monitored the neighborhood's transformation. What had started as a defensive operation against one gang had evolved into something larger, a model for community protection that others were eager to replicate. Our network is expanding, Michael reported, checking secure channels. More veterans volunteering for community support roles, more neighborhoods establishing similar security protocols. The warehouse incident created an effective template. Sarah's position allowed perfect observation of the changing neighborhood dynamics. The Shadow Rider's territory had been transformed from a hunting ground for predators into a protected zone where normal life could flourish. Law enforcement is still processing evidence, Jake mentioned with subtle amusement. They've got theories about special operations teams, about sophisticated military interventions. Nobody's looking at the disabled veteran drinking water and watching the street. The ghost of Fallujah had evolved into something new, an urban legend that protected vulnerable communities through carefully maintained mystery and precise application of force. The wheelchair had become part of that legend, a reminder that appearances could be deceiving. Emergency sirens pierced the night as Sarah monitored police frequencies from her apartment command center. 3 blocks from Veterans Corner Bar, a situation was developing that threatened everything they'd accomplished in the neighborhood. Multiple armed suspects, possible hostage situation at First Regional Bank, Michael reported, tracking tactical feeds. Police establishing perimeter, but something's off about their response patterns. His fingers moved across specialized equipment, analyzing data streams. Sarah studied surveillance footage through secured channels, her trained eye catching details others might miss. The bank robbers moved with military precision, their equipment suggesting resources far beyond common criminals. They're not here for money, she concluded, observing their tactical positioning. This is a professional operation using a bank robbery as cover. Through multiple screens, she watched them establish defensive positions with practiced efficiency. Michael accessed additional data streams, his expression growing concerned. Getting weird signals from police channels. Some units are standing down, others being redirected. Someone's manipulating emergency response protocols. Sarah's wheelchair sat empty beside her monitoring station as she processed tactical implications. Pull up everything we have on recent law enforcement communications. Focus on command-level changes and unusual deployment patterns. Through their surveillance network, they observed the bank robbers implementing sophisticated electronic countermeasures. These weren't opportunistic criminals. They were trained operators with specific objectives. "Sir," one of their veteran observers reported through secured channels, identified multiple support teams in civilian vehicles. They're establishing cleanup positions around potential escape routes. The operator's military experience was evident in his precise assessment. Sarah accessed detailed maps of the area, marking enemy positions and tactical assets. They're using the bank as a staging area, not a target. The real operation is happening somewhere else. Her mind processed multiple scenarios, calculating probable objectives. "Found something," Michael announced, correlating data streams. 3 days ago, unusual transfers of sensitive materials through secured federal channels. Destination classified, but routing suggests temporary storage in our sector. The command center's displays showed increasing police presence around the bank, but Sarah noted their deployment patterns. They're establishing a containment zone, but facing the wrong direction. These aren't regular law enforcement units. Through their network of veterans, reports confirmed unusual activity throughout the neighborhood. Civilian-dressed operators moving with military precision, communication patterns suggesting coordinated action rather than random crime. "Sir," Michael highlighted new data, "accessing bank architectural plans. There's something interesting about their vault level. Recent modifications not showing in public records." His analysis revealed sophisticated security systems beyond normal banking requirements. Sarah studied tactical overlays, her mind connecting patterns. The bank's being used as a temporary secure facility. Whatever they're storing down there, that's the real target. The robbery is theatrical cover for an extraction operation. Their surveillance network tracked multiple teams moving into position around the bank. Some wore police uniforms, others civilian clothes, but all displayed the subtle signs of professional military training. "Getting movement at secondary locations," Michael reported, monitoring their sector. Similar teams establishing positions near critical infrastructure. They're preparing for something bigger than a bank robbery. Sarah accessed secured weapons storage, selecting equipment with practiced efficiency. They chose this location carefully, close enough to veterans' corner bar to draw attention, far enough to avoid immediate response. They think they understand our operational patterns. Through specialized optics, she observed the police perimeter expanding, pushing civilian observers. back while actually establishing clean lines of fire. These weren't law enforcement officers. They were combat operators using police cover. "Sir," another veteran reported, "identified multiple sniper teams setting up in elevated positions. Their equipment doesn't match standard police tactical units." The observation carried the weight of professional experience. Michael tracked communication patterns across their sector. They're implementing sophisticated electronic warfare protocols, trying to isolate the area from normal emergency response channels. Sarah checked her tactical loadout while processing strategic implications. They think they're establishing control of the battle space. Time to show them what that really means. Her voice carried the quiet certainty that had made her legendary. In combat zones, their command center's systems revealed increasing enemy activity throughout the sector. What looked like random criminal action to civilian observers was actually a carefully choreographed military operation. "Found their communication framework," Michael reported, fingers moving across specialized equipment. "They're using modified military protocols, but there's something familiar about their encryption patterns." Sarah recognized the tactical methodology being employed. These aren't just professional operators. They're connected to Reaper's organization. This is retaliation, but with significantly higher level support. Through their surveillance network, veterans reported additional teams moving into position around the neighborhood. The bank operation was just one part of a larger strategic plan targeting their entire territory. "Sir," Michael highlighted new data streams detecting unusual power signatures from the bank's vault level. Whatever they're storing down there requires specialized containment systems. Sarah studied tactical displays showing enemy force distribution. They've committed significant resources to this operation. Multiple teams, advanced equipment, professional coordination. They think overwhelming force guarantees success. Their command center tracked increasing activity as more assets moved into position. What appeared chaotic to outside observers was actually a precisely planned military operation using civilian emergency response as cover. "Getting additional teams at channel points," Michael reported, monitoring tactical feeds. "They're establishing cleanup positions to handle potential witnesses. These aren't regular criminals worried about identification." Sarah accessed their veteran network through secured communications. "All units maintain observation only. Let them think they have control of the situation. They've planned this operation carefully. Time to show them why that's their weakness." Through specialized surveillance systems, they tracked enemy movements throughout their sector. Each team displayed professional military training, suggesting resources far beyond normal criminal organizations. "Sir," Michael analyzed new data, correlating their tactical patterns with known operators. These teams have worked together before, probably in official capacity before going private. Sarah processed tactical implications while finalizing her equipment check. "They're using their training against us, thinking military precision guarantees operational success. They're about to learn why some legends survive long after the wars that created them end." Their command center's displays showed the operation entering its active phase. What looked like a hostage situation to civilian observers was actually a sophisticated military extraction using public emergency response as cover. "Getting movement in the vault," Michael reported, monitoring thermal signatures. "They're accessing whatever's stored down there. Timing suggests this is just phase one of a larger operation." Sarah moved toward her predetermined deployment route. Years of combat experience evident in every precise movement. They think they understand what they're dealing with. Time to educate them about the difference between training and experience. Through their surveillance network, veterans reported increasing tension in the sector. Professional operators using police and civilian cover had established multiple tactical positions, thinking they controlled the battle space. "Sir," Michael tracked communication patterns, detecting coordination with teams outside our normal surveillance range. This operation has significant backup resources in place. Sarah accessed final tactical data before deployment. They're playing a sophisticated game, using multiple layers of deception and professional assets. But they've made one critical mistake. They think they're the hunters. Their command center systems revealed the true scope of the enemy operation. What appeared to be a local crisis was actually a carefully planned military action, with implications far beyond a simple bank robbery. "Getting unusual traffic on secured channels," Michael reported, monitoring encrypted communications. "Someone high up is taking personal interest in this operation's success." Sarah made final adjustments to her equipment while processing strategic implications. The ghost of Fallujah was about to remind everyone why some legends carried weight in professional circles, why certain reputations survived long after the operations that created them faded into classified history. The bank's maintenance tunnels provided perfect infiltration routes as Sarah moved with practiced efficiency through predetermined paths. Above, professional operators maintained what they thought was complete tactical control, unaware that their carefully planned operation was about to collide with a force they hadn't properly considered. Vault Access Team is initiating primary extraction, Michael reported through secured communications. Thermal imaging shows they're moving something in specialized containment. Whatever's down there, it's high value enough to warrant this level of resources. Sarah reached her first tactical position, accessing enemy movements through specialized optics. The police perimeter had effectively isolated the area from civilian observation, but their focus on external threats left them vulnerable to internal compromise, getting increased chatter on their command channels, Michael noted, monitoring encrypted frequencies. They're coordinating with additional teams outside our normal surveillance range. This operation has serious backing. Through multiple feeds, Sarah observed their tactical deployment. These weren't just professional operators. They were executing detailed plans with military precision, suggesting extensive preparation and significant resources. "Sir," one of their veteran observers reported, identified their sniper teams. 4 positions, high-end equipment, definitely military trained. They're establishing overlapping fields of fire, covering all standard approach vectors. Sarah accessed detailed structural data while processing tactical options. "Status on Vault security systems?" she requested, already calculating points of vulnerability in their operation. Michael's fingers moved across specialized equipment. "They've compromised primary protocols, but something's interesting about their method. They're using administrative access codes. This was arranged from inside. The bank's emergency lighting cast strange shadows through maintenance areas as Sarah moved to her next position. Years of combat experience guided every movement, each step placing her closer to optimal engagement zones. "Getting new players," Michael reported suddenly. 3 unmarked vehicles approaching from the north, different tactical profile from the main operation teams. His voice carried professional concern as he analyzed their movement patterns. Sarah observed the new arrivals through secured feeds. They're not part of the original operation, she noted. These are containment teams. Someone's worried about their primary operators failing. Their surveillance network tracked increasing activity around the bank's perimeter. What looked like standard police response to civilian observers was actually a sophisticated military operation with multiple layers of security. "Sir," another veteran reported, "their extraction team is preparing to move. Whatever they came for, they've got it. Thermal signatures suggest specialized transport protocols. Sarah accessed additional tactical data while maintaining position. Their timeline's accelerating," she observed. "Something's making them nervous. Time to show them why." Her voice carried the quiet certainty that had made her legendary in combat zones. Through specialized surveillance, they tracked enemy movements throughout the structure. Each team displayed professional coordination, but their confidence had made them predictable. "Found their command channels," Michael reported. "They're using modified military protocols, but there's something off about their encryption. It's too perfect, too by the book." Sarah recognized the tactical pattern. They're following training exactly as taught. No adaptation, no innovation. They think perfect execution guarantees success. Her assessment carried years of combat experience. Their network of veterans reported additional teams establishing positions around the neighborhood. The bank operation was clearly part of a larger strategic plan, but its precise execution had created exploitable vulnerabilities. "Sir," Michael highlighted new data. "Their containment teams are setting up some kind of specialized equipment, electronic warfare gear, military grade. They're preparing to isolate the entire sector." Sarah studied tactical displays showing enemy force distribution. "They're creating a blackout zone," she noted. "Planning to cut all communications before the main extraction, standard protocol for classified operations." Through secured channels, they monitored increasing tension in the sector. Professional operators using police and civilian cover had established what they thought was complete tactical control of the battle space. "Getting unusual signals," Michael reported, analyzing data streams. "They're implementing some kind of countdown protocol. All teams coordinating for synchronized action." Sarah made final adjustments to her position while processing strategic implications. "They think they're executing a perfect operation," she noted. "Time to introduce some chaos into their system." Their surveillance network tracked multiple teams moving into final positions. What appeared as coordinated emergency response to outside observers was actually a precisely planned military extraction operation. "Sir," Michael monitored encrypted channels. "Their Vault team is initiating final security protocols. Whatever they're moving, it's about to come up." Sarah accessed predetermined engagement zones through specialized optics. "Maintain observation," she instructed their network. "Let them think everything's proceeding according to plan." The bank's internal systems hummed with activity as enemy teams prepared for extraction. Professional operators moved with practiced efficiency, unaware that their perfect execution had made them vulnerable. "Getting increased chatter," Michael reported. "Their containment teams are picking up unusual readings. Something's making them nervous." Sarah observed their tactical responses through multiple feeds. "They're starting to sense something's wrong," she noted, "but their training is working against them now. They'll follow protocols instead of trusting instincts. Their command center tracked enemy movements as the operation entered its critical phase. What looked like standard procedure to tactical observers was actually creating perfect conditions for what was to come. "Sir," another veteran reported, "their sniper teams are adjusting positions. They're responding to something, but can't identify the threat." Sarah moved with practiced silence through predetermined routes. "They're feeling pressure but can't locate its source," she noted. "Professional paranoia working in our favor." Through specialized surveillance, they observed increasing tension among enemy teams. Perfect military execution was beginning to crack as undefined threats created psychological pressure. "Their command channels are showing stress," Michael reported. "Teams requesting confirmation of shadows, movements they can't quite track. The hunters are starting to feel hunted." Sarah accessed final tactical positions while monitoring enemy response patterns. "They think their training prepares them for everything," she noted. "Time to show them why experience matters more." Their network tracked multiple teams responding to perceived threats. Professional operators were maintaining tactical discipline, but uncertainty was beginning to affect their coordination. "Sir," Michael highlighted new data, "their containment teams are requesting reinforcement. Something's got them spooked enough to break radio discipline." Sarah observed their deteriorating tactical situation through specialized optics. "They're starting to understand," she noted quietly. "But it's too late now. The trap is already set." Through secured channels, they monitored increasing chaos in enemy communications. What had started as perfect military execution was becoming something else entirely as undefined threats created mounting pressure. "Getting serious disruption in their command structure," Michael reported. "Teams are breaking standard protocols, requesting permission to engage shadows they can't properly identify." Sarah made final preparations while processing tactical advantages. "They thought overwhelming force was enough," she noted. "Now they're learning why some legends survived long after the wars that created them end." Their surveillance network tracked mounting confusion among enemy teams. Professional operators maintained defensive positions, but their perfect coordination was compromising under increasing psychological pressure. "Sir," another veteran reported, "their extraction team is speeding up procedures. Whatever they came for, they want to get it out now. Planning's giving way to urgency." Sarah accessed predetermined engagement zones through multiple feeds. "Let them feel the pressure build," she instructed. "Perfect execution becomes a weakness when the plan starts falling apart." The bank's emergency systems cast shifting shadows as enemy teams tried maintaining tactical discipline. Professional operators followed their training, but experience was teaching them harsh lessons about the difference between theory and reality. "Their command channels are approaching breakdown," Michael reported. "Teams reporting threats they can't engage, movements that shouldn't be possible. The perfect operation is becoming a perfect trap." Sarah observed their tactical deterioration through specialized optics. The ghost of Fallujah was about to remind everyone why certain reputations carried weight in professional circles, why some legends were better left unchallenged. The bank's vault level hummed with tension as Sarah initiated her final approach. Professional operators maintained defensive positions around specialized transport equipment, their perfect military execution about to become their greatest vulnerability. "Extraction team is preparing for movement," Michael reported through secured channels. 5-man detail with the package, another 8 providing close protection, all showing signs of increased stress. Sarah accessed optimal firing positions through predetermined routes. Years of combat experience had taught her that precision marksmanship was as much about psychological impact as physical effect. "Sir," one of their veterans observed, "their containment teams are implementing some kind of specialized protocol, electronic warfare equipment activating across the sector." Through multiple feeds, Sarah watched enemy teams coordinate their final preparations. Professional operators moved with practiced efficiency, but their movements carried growing urgency that compromised tactical awareness. "Getting unusual power signatures," Michael noted, monitoring specialized equipment. "Whatever they're transporting requires significant containment systems, military-grade, probably classified technology." Sarah reached her primary position, accessing enemy tactical patterns through specialized optics. The Vault Level's emergency lighting cast perfect shadows for what was about to unfold. "Their command channels are deteriorating," Michael reported. "Teams breaking radio discipline, reporting movement they can't track. Professional coordination giving way to instinctive response." Through secured feeds, Sarah observed mounting tension among enemy operators. Perfect military execution was becoming a liability as undefined threats created increasing psychological pressure. "Sir," another veteran noted, "their sniper teams are requesting permission to engage suspected threats. They're seeing movement that doesn't match our known positions." Sarah initiated the first phase of her counter-operation, using precisely timed movements to create phantom threats. Professional operators maintained defensive positions, while shadows seemed to shift at the edge of their vision. "Getting serious disruption in their command structure," Michael reported. "Teams abandoning standard protocols, requesting immediate extraction. The perfect operation is becoming something else entirely." Through specialized surveillance, they tracked mounting confusion among enemy forces. What had started as coordinated military precision was devolving into increasingly desperate tactical responses. "Sir," a veteran observer reported, "their extraction team is attempting to accelerate procedures. Whatever they're moving, they want it out now. Planning's giving way to urgency." Sarah accessed predetermined engagement zones while processing tactical advantages. Years of combat experience had taught her that psychological pressure could compromise even the most professional operators. "Their containment teams are reporting equipment malfunctions," Michael noted. "Electronic warfare systems showing anomalous readings. They can't isolate the threat." Through multiple feeds, Sarah watched enemy coordination deteriorate. Professional operators maintained defensive positions, but their perfect execution was becoming a weakness as undefined threats created mounting pressure. "Getting increased chatter on command channels," Michael reported. "Teams requesting permission to engage targets they can't properly identify. Training giving way to instinct." Sarah moved through carefully calculated shadows, each movement designed to create maximum psychological impact. Professional operators maintained tactical discipline, but experience was teaching them harsh lessons about the difference between theory and reality. "Sir," another veteran observed, "their sniper teams are abandoning elevated positions. Something's got them spooked enough to compromise their coverage." Through secured channels, they monitored increasing chaos in enemy communications. What had started as perfect military execution was becoming something else entirely as undefined. Threats created mounting pressure. Their command structure is approaching breakdown, Michael reported. Teams reporting threats they can't engage, movements that shouldn't be possible. The perfect operation is becoming a perfect trap. Sarah accessed final firing positions while processing tactical advantages. The ghost of Fallujah was about to remind everyone why certain reputations carried weight in professional circles, why some legends were better left unchallenged. Extraction team is initiating emergency procedures, Michael noted. They're abandoning standard protocols, trying to force their way out. Whatever they're transporting has them scared enough to compromise security. Through specialized optics, Sarah observed enemy teams attempting to maintain coordination. Professional operators followed their training, but experience was teaching them harsh lessons about the difference between theory and reality. "Sir," a veteran reported, "their containment teams are requesting immediate support. Electronic warfare systems are showing impossible readings." Sarah moved through predetermined routes, each step bringing her closer to optimal engagement zones. Years of combat experience guided every movement as she prepared to demonstrate why perfect execution wasn't enough. Getting serious deterioration in their command channels, Michael reported. Teams breaking formation, requesting permission to engage shadows. The hunters are becoming the hunted. Through multiple feeds, they tracked mounting confusion among enemy forces. Professional operators maintained defensive positions, but their perfect coordination was compromising under increasing psychological pressure. "Sir," another veteran noted, "their extraction team is abandoning security protocols. They're preparing for immediate movement regardless of tactical situation." Sarah accessed final firing positions while processing strategic advantages. The bank's vault level had become a perfect hunting ground, its shadows transforming from concealment to weapons. Their containment teams are implementing emergency procedures, Michael reported. Electronic warfare systems showing cascading failures. They can't maintain sector isolation. Through specialized surveillance, they observed increasing tension among enemy operators. Perfect military execution was becoming a liability as undefined threats created mounting psychological pressure. Getting critical breakdown in their command structure, Michael noted. Teams reporting movement they can't track, threats they can't engage. Professional coordination is completely compromised. Sarah initiated her final approach, using precisely timed movements to create maximum impact. Professional operators maintained defensive positions, but their perfect execution had become their greatest vulnerability. "Sir," a veteran observer reported, "their sniper teams are completely withdrawn. Something's got them spooked enough to abandon coverage entirely." Through secured channels, they monitored increasing chaos in enemy communications. What had started as coordinated military precision was devolving into increasingly desperate tactical responses. Their command channels are approaching total failure, Michael reported. Teams breaking radio discipline, requesting immediate extraction. The perfect operation has become a perfect nightmare. Sarah accessed optimal firing positions while processing tactical advantages. Years of combat experience had taught her that victory often came through exploiting enemy strengths rather than weaknesses. Extraction team is implementing final procedures, Michael noted. They're preparing for immediate movement regardless of security situation. Whatever they're transporting has them terrified. Through specialized optics, Sarah observed enemy teams attempting to maintain coordination. Professional operators followed their training, but experience was teaching them harsh lessons about the difference between theory and reality. "Sir," another veteran reported, "their containment teams are abandoning positions. Electronic warfare systems are completely compromised." Sarah moved through carefully calculated shadows, each step bringing her closer to optimal engagement zones. The vault level had become a perfect hunting ground, its emergency lighting creating ideal conditions for what was to come. Getting final breakdown in their command structure, Michael reported. Teams reporting impossible movements, threats they can't identify. Professional coordination has completely collapsed. Through multiple feeds, they tracked mounting confusion among enemy forces. Perfect military execution had become a liability, as undefined threats created overwhelming psychological pressure. "Sir," a veteran observer noted, "their extraction team is initiating emergency movement. They're abandoning all standard protocols." Sarah accessed final firing positions while processing strategic advantages. The Ghost of Fallujah was about to demonstrate why some legends survived long after the wars that created them ended. "Their containment teams are completely withdrawn," Michael reported. "Electronic warfare systems showing total failure. The sector is completely compromised." Through specialized surveillance, they observed increasing panic among enemy operators. Professional training had given way to primal instincts as undefined threats created mounting psychological pressure. Getting total collapse in their command structure, Michael noted. Teams breaking formation, abandoning positions. The perfect operation has become perfect chaos. Sarah initiated her final movement, years of combat experience guiding every step. Professional operators maintained defensive positions, but their perfect execution had created perfect vulnerabilities for what was about to unfold. The bank's vault level resonated with tense silence as Sarah prepared to shatter the enemy's perfect operation. Professional operators maintained their positions around specialized transport equipment, unaware that their military precision had created the perfect conditions for their downfall. Extraction team is approaching critical threshold, Michael reported through secured channels. They're attempting to balance protocol with growing urgency. Coordination is fragmenting under pressure. Sarah accessed optimal vantage points through the building's maintenance systems. Years of combat operations had taught her that the most dangerous predator was one the enemy couldn't properly identify or engage. Their containment teams are reporting system anomalies, Michael noted, monitoring encrypted frequencies. Electronic warfare equipment showing increasingly erratic readings. They can't isolate or identify the source. Through specialized optics, Sarah observed the mounting tension among enemy operators. What had started as precise military execution was devolving into something more primal as undefined threats created escalating psychological pressure. "Sir," one of their veteran observers reported, "identified specialized transport container in the vault. Whatever they're moving requires significant power input. Thermal signatures suggest advanced containment protocols." Sarah processed tactical implications while maintaining absolute stillness. "Status on external response teams," she requested, calculating optimal engagement sequences. Michael's fingers moved across multiple displays. 3 additional units approaching from different vectors. Different tactical profile from primary operators. These are serious players, probably direct government assets. The vault level's emergency lighting cast perfect shadows as Sarah initiated her first move. The bank robbers maintained professional discipline, but their training was about to become a liability rather than an asset. Getting increased chatter on secured channels, Michael reported. Someone high up is demanding immediate extraction. They're more worried about securing the package than maintaining operational security. Sarah observed their deteriorating tactical situation through multiple feeds. Confirm status on civilian presence, she requested, ensuring their battlefield was properly isolated. Police perimeter is maintaining civilian exclusion, Michael confirmed. All non-combatants have been evacuated from the engagement zone. We have a clean operating environment. Through their surveillance network, veterans reported increasing activity around the bank's exterior. What looked like standard law enforcement, response was actually a sophisticated containment operation designed to isolate the area from outside observation. Sir, another observer noted, their sniper teams are reporting movement they can't track. Professional discipline is starting to crack under psychological pressure. Sarah moved like a ghost through carefully calculated positions. Each movement was precisely timed to create maximum uncertainty among enemy operators who relied too heavily on standard tactical responses. Their command channels are showing serious degradation, Michael reported. Teams are breaking protocol, requesting permission to engage unconfirmed targets. The perfect operation is becoming perfectly compromised. Through secured feeds, Sarah watched enemy coordination deteriorate. Professional operators maintained defensive positions, but their rigid adherence to training created exploitable vulnerabilities. Getting unusual power fluctuations, Michael noted, monitoring specialized equipment. Whatever they're transporting is demanding increasing energy input. Their containment systems are under stress. Sarah accessed predetermined firing positions while processing tactical advantages. Years of combat experience had taught her that victory often came through exploiting enemy strengths rather than weaknesses. Sir, a veteran observer reported, their extraction team is implementing emergency procedures. They're preparing to move the package regardless of tactical situation. The vault-level security systems hummed with tension as Sarah initiated her next phase. Enemy operators maintained their positions, but their perfect military execution was becoming a perfect trap. Their electronic warfare grid is showing cascading failures, Michael reported. Containment teams can't maintain sector isolation. Something's interfering with their equipment. Through specialized surveillance, they tracked mounting confusion among enemy forces. What had started as coordinated military precision was devolving into increasingly desperate tactical responses. Sir, another veteran noted, their sniper teams are abandoning elevated positions. Something's got them spooked enough to compromise their coverage. Sarah moved through carefully calculated shadows, each step designed to create maximum psychological impact. Professional operators followed. Their training, but experience was teaching them harsh lessons about the difference between theory and reality. Getting critical breakdown in their command structure, Michael reported. Teams reporting threats they can't engage, movements that shouldn't be possible. Their perfect coordination is completely compromised. Through secured channels, they monitored increasing chaos in enemy communications. The Ghost of Fallujah was demonstrating why some legends survived long after the wars that created them ended. Extraction team is initiating final movement, Michael noted. They're abandoning standard protocols, trying to force their way out. Whatever they're transporting has them scared enough to compromise security. Sarah accessed optimal firing positions through predetermined routes. The vault level had become a perfect hunting ground, its emergency lighting creating ideal conditions for what was to come. Their containment teams are reporting total system failure, Michael reported. Electronic warfare equipment is showing impossible readings. They can't maintain sector isolation. Through multiple feeds, they tracked mounting confusion among enemy forces. Professional operators maintained defensive positions, but their perfect coordination was compromising under increasing psychological pressure. Sir, a veteran observer noted, their extraction team is breaking formation. They're preparing for immediate evacuation regardless of tactical situation. Sarah moved with lethal precision through carefully calculated positions. The bank's vault level had become a theater where military training was being systematically dismantled by combat experience, getting final collapse in their command structure, Michael reported. Teams abandoning positions, reporting movement they can't track. The perfect operation has become perfect chaos. Through specialized optics, Sarah observed enemy teams attempting to maintain coordination. Professional operators followed their training, but experience was teaching them harsh lessons about the limitations of perfect execution. Their sniper teams are completely withdrawn, Michael noted. Something's got them spooked enough to abandon their entire coverage network. Sarah initiated her final approach, using precisely timed movements to create maximum impact. The vault-level shadows seemed to shift and move, creating phantom threats that professional training couldn't properly address. Sir, another veteran reported, their extraction team is attempting emergency protocols. They're trying to move the package without proper security coverage. Through secured channels, they monitored increasing panic in enemy communications. What had started as coordinated military precision was devolving into primal survival instincts. Getting total breakdown in their command channels, Michael reported. Teams reporting impossible movements, threats they can't identify. Professional coordination has completely collapsed. Sarah accessed final firing positions while processing tactical advantages. Years of combat experience had taught her that victory often came through exploiting enemy assumptions rather than their weaknesses. Their containment teams are abandoning positions, Michael noted. Electronic warfare systems showing complete failure. The sector is totally compromised. Through specialized surveillance, they observed increasing chaos among enemy operators. Perfect military execution had become a liability as undefined threats created overwhelming psychological pressure. Sir, a veteran observer reported, their extraction team is making final preparations. They're about to move regardless of tactical situation. Sarah moved through carefully calculated shadows, each step bringing her closer to optimal engagement zones. The vault level had become a perfect demonstration of why experience outweighed training in actual combat situations. Getting last-stage collapse in their command structure, Michael reported. Teams breaking formation, abandoning positions. The perfect operation has become a perfect nightmare. Through multiple feeds, they tracked mounting confusion among enemy forces. Professional operators maintained defensive positions, but their rigid adherence to protocol had created perfect vulnerabilities for what was about to unfold. The ghost of Fallujah was about to remind everyone why certain reputations carried weight. In professional circles, why some legends were better left unchallenged. The bank's vault level was about to become another chapter in a legend that grew with each operation, each demonstration of why perfect training wasn't enough against true combat experience. Thank you for following Sarah Shadow Martinez's incredible journey. The story showcases her transformation from a decorated Marine Corps sniper to a legendary protector of her community, demonstrating that true strength comes in many forms. If you enjoyed this tale of courage, tactical brilliance, and community protection, please consider subscribing to our channel for more gripping stories that explore themes of resilience, justice, and the enduring spirit of veterans who continue to serve their communities in unexpected ways. As Sarah proves, sometimes the most powerful protectors operate in plain sight, turning perceived vulnerabilities into strengths. Her story reminds us that legends aren't just born on foreign battlefields. They can emerge in our own neighborhoods, defending those who need protection most. Share this story with others who appreciate complex characters, tactical storytelling, and narratives that challenge our assumptions about strength and disability. Your support helps us continue creating engaging content that celebrates the extraordinary individuals who make our communities safer and stronger. Join our growing community of readers and become part of the conversation about the evolving nature of heroism, justice, and community protection in today's world. Don't forget to like, share, and hit that subscribe button to stay updated on more captivating stories that blend military expertise with contemporary challenges. Together, we can explore more tales that remind us why some legends are better left unchallenged. Remember, as Sarah Martinez proved, true strength isn't always visible, and the most effective guardians often operate from where you least expect them.